Hey, what's up guys, Unrested here, and I'm doing a follow-up to my video that I made yesterday called Japan's Worst Internship. I want to go ahead and bookend this video. I already made the whole video and you'll see as it starts after this little intro. And one thing I want to make sure I add at the very beginning of this, everybody that I talk about in this whole video, people responding to it, I have respect for. Disagreeing is not equal to disrespect. You can disagree with someone while still respecting them. So I do want that to be perfectly clear, that even the maker of these films, the host of these films, the director of these films, I've got to have respect for it. I mean, it's decently shot, it's decently paced, it purveys a story which we can follow. It is, by all means, a documentary, whether you want to believe what is sensationalized or not. You have to give it props for its quality, if nothing else. So I just want that to be perfectly clear. Also, I want to just go over a couple things that I forgot to add at the end of this, and I'm going to let you just jump into the video right now. And if you could just stay around for the bookend of this, the very last part that I have to say, you'll see what I have to follow up through. That'll leave you asking some questions as well, I hope.
What is up, everybody? Unrested back again. Guys, I'm doing a bit of a follow-up to my JFAQ yesterday called Worst Internship in Japan. Some people had a couple of problems with the points I made, and I'd like to follow those up with some constructive criticism. I am always open and welcoming to any views that are constructive and well-informed arguments against what I've said. That's fine. Busan Kevin and I had a bit of a discussion on this yesterday. Of course, no hard feelings. He's a very intelligent man with a very intelligent point that he's coming across with. And a couple other people argued on the same points that he made, which I think is valid. I think they are valid points, and I'd like to just take some time right now to talk about this. Now, if you're not familiar with the video that came out yesterday, I highly advise you to watch that first. Worst Internship in Japan, my latest JFAQ. It's a Vice video that was covered by a reporter who decided to talk about how bad the working conditions were for Chinese immigrants who came over here to work internships, only to find out that these internships were things like shucking oysters and other hard labor, that the pay wasn't always what it seemed, that the conditions were bad, that the living conditions were bad. I'd like to touch on a couple things first. First, I'd like to start off first with the whole pronunciation thing. Right away, the first thing I cite is that the guy can't even pronounce Hiroshima. And people are like, gosh, does everybody need to know how to pronounce every language perfectly? The guy can speak all these languages. He's great at speaking Russian and Ukrainian. And okay, look, every average Joe doesn't need to pronounce Japanese correctly. I totally understand that. That's okay. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying every single person who ever talks about Japan has to say everything perfectly. If you're going to do a documentary on Japan and say that you're an expert on the subject that you're covering and that you're a knowledgeable person, then yes, you are kind of expected to be able to pronounce the thing you say you are an expert on properly. Okay, imagine going to a college professor's class and he's like, I've been, teaching this subject for so-and-so amount of years, and he can't even pronounce the topics that he's talking about correctly. How much validity would you give that professor? All right, I'm not saying every average Joe. I'm saying people who claim to be experts on a subject should be an expert as to how to pronounce that subject. Is that too much to ask? I myself never even claimed to be an expert on Japan. I just am a guy who talks about Japan and lives here. All my videos are under entertainment. I never say I'm an educational source, by the way. Worker conditions. Worker conditions are supposedly so harsh and bad, and that this guy is out there to expose inhumane working conditions. Well, let's take a look at these inhumane working conditions and why these people have put themselves in that situation. These Chinese immigrants who came over here to Japan weren't escaping a wonderful life in China. If his true source was to go after inhumane working conditions, why wouldn't he go after the ones that they escaped in China, where they're way, way, way worse? I mean, am I not getting through to you here with this point? Is that not balanced to at least, at the very least, balance out the report by first talking about the origin story of why they ran away from China, that the working conditions there were so bad? If this whole story is about bad working conditions, talk about the ones that they escaped for a balanced report. Don't just say, well, it's this way in Japan. They escaped a wonderful life in China, but now they're totally being beat down by the man in Japan. I'm not giving any kind of credit to Japan as being a wonderful employer. I'm not even arguing that they're having good treatment. I think they are being treated poorly. I think those jobs do suck. I think their living conditions do suck. I'm not agreeing, I'm not trying to apologize for Japan and say, Japan is so perfect. No, that sucks. But guess what sucks even worse? China. So, if his main goal was to go after the evil of inhumane working conditions, why not go after the greatest evil? Let me tell you why. I'm going to go a little bit farther into this as to why he didn't go to China. Because if he went to China and tried to do the same report, he would either be 1, incarcerated, or number 2, killed by the Chinese government. Okay, because they don't put up with that shit. They lock down and shut down anyone who ever tries to make them look bad. That's why you can't go on YouTube there and find Tiananmen Square. It's shitty, it's horrible, it's non-progressive government system that is utter totalitarianism and fascism. I completely don't think it's a good thing at all, but I'm saying he didn't want to put himself on the line out there because he knew it would happen in China. So what he did was come to a country where he knew he could, you know, attack a bully that wouldn't fight back. Be like, look at this bad guy, I know he won't fight back, so I'm gonna go after this. So that makes me think, who's he really looking out for when he does these reports then? Is he looking out for the workers, or is he looking out for himself? Making it safe for himself where he can do these reports. And then, I want you to get into calling the police. There's 2 videos now. There's this high school girls for sale video and this worst internship in Japan video. And in both of these, there's a situation where someone starts to call the police because he's there reporting. Now what he says he's reporting on is stuff that is, you know, it's criminal, it's inhumane, it's unlawful, it's illegal. So if the people are calling the police, why would you leave? Every time that people call the police in these reports that he's doing, he's like, it seems as though they're calling the police now, so I think that's our cue to get out of here. We got to get out. Why? Why do you got to get out of there? I mean, if you're going to stand up for these people, stay around with your translator and explain the situation to the police. You know? Don't just be the guy who's like, look at how bad this is. Okay, I'm out of here. Bye. Do something about it. Right? If it's so bad. So, I mean, does that not seem a little bit sketchy to you? A little bit fishy? What's going on there? The police are being called by the people who you're supposedly accusing of doing illegal stuff. And then you're gonna leave? You see where I'm coming from here? You starting to get this? What's going on here? Why would you leave? And I welcome your valid arguments against this. I welcome your insight on this. I welcome your theories as to why he would suddenly need to leave when the police are being called to a situation that's supposedly illegal. And he has a translator. I know he can't speak Japanese, that's fine. He's got his translator with him the whole time. Alright guys? I'm just going to leave you with some of those thoughts. Alright? Some of those arguments from my side as to why I still don't see this as valid. And people want to say, this guy's got Emmys and stuff, he's won all these awards. I can give you a list of reporters who have fallen from grace after all their awards. You want to go to CNN right now and do kind of a little list right there of some award-winning supposed reporters that are, legit and valid? Come on now.
So, I'm glad you had the patience to watch through that. I appreciate if you watched the first video to the one from yesterday, the JFAQ from yesterday, and I appreciate you getting through this one. Let me just end it on this by saying, look, I know conditions are bad for those jobs, and I'm not denying that at all. It is something that still needs to be worked out, stamped out, and even in America too, we have shitty working conditions for a lot of immigrant workers, a lot of undocumented workers. Just because they're undocumented, I don't think anybody should be treated that poorly at a job. But here's one thing I want to say. Number one, there's oftentimes that there's discrepancies in these videos or things that are just kind of a really big stretch. And that's another thing that kind of gets me about these videos. For example, the girls for sale, high school girls for sale video as well, there's a part where he also tries to compare girl groups to prostitutes within the same paragraph and sentences that he's exploring these different genres of people and their trades and career paths. And I feel like that's a hell of a stretch. Even he has at one point has to admit how innocent most of it is until some old guy comes up and is interested in the group, in which case, who's to blame, that girl group or that old guy? I mean, you got to make it a little more clear. On top of that, I felt like the high school girl for sale video was far better because he brought in Jake Adelstein, who gave a lot of credit, a lot of know-how, a lot of efficiency and well-learned education in his stay within Japan. I think he's been here somewhere 20 plus years. And you can really get that vibe from that video, that you feel like it's really well documented, really well backed up with facts. And in this one, you notice Jake is missing. Jake is not in this video, which I'm not saying that he didn't want to be part of it. Maybe he didn't have the time, maybe he couldn't schedule, maybe he wanted to and wanted to stand up for this, but wasn't there. But it makes me even wonder even more, like, why was this not something he partook in as well? Was he opposed to this one? Like I said, that's a complete up in the air situation. We don't know what his concerns or want to be within this video was. So, but at the same time, it does take away credit from this video, seeing as we don't have a veteran gaijin within Japan telling us his views. We have just the guy who's popped in here on an airplane and said hi and left. Not that there's anything wrong with gaijin that do that, but I do find the ones that have stayed here 20 plus years do tend to naturally have more knowledge of the country. I mean, for obvious reasons. Last but not least, I want to leave you thinking about this. Vice News. Okay? They have a Japan headquarters. There is a Japanese department of Vice News. Why weren't they covering this story? Why aren't they covering the high school girls for sale story either? Why isn't the headquarters of Japanese Vice within Japan printed in Japanese, sometimes translated as well? Why aren't they covering these things? I mean, doesn't that add even more sketchiness to this whole situation? Why would you not let the headquarters that is within Japan, with the people who are indigenous to Japan, with the reporters that are indigenous to Japan, explore the problem indigenous to Japan? Why bring in a gaijin from another country who doesn't speak any Japanese and can barely pronounce Japanese words, has never lived in Japan, to be the person to cover this topic? You see where I'm coming from here? I've got to be making a point with you. Why is some outsider, and I'm an outsider too, I'm a gaijin. I would trust a Japanese source within Japan, a headquarters within Japan, reporters within Japan covering this more than I would this guy. Sorry, that's just my little last 2 cents I wanted to throw in there. Guys, thanks so much for making it all the way through this. I want to hear your thoughts, your comments, your replies on this. Maybe there's some of these things you can totally knock apart. You can totally blow apart the theories and stuff that I have, the kind of questions that I have, the sketchiness that I see. And if you can, I welcome it. I want to see myself proven wrong. If there's another way I can take a look at this video and say, you know what, you were totally right, here's this, this, and this, hit me with it. Let's hear it. Have a good one, guys.